It's Friday, May 31st at 8:31 a.m. We're here for our fourth session of negotiations. Good morning, guys. How would you like to start today?
Well, so we have a couple of things that we would like to kind of talk about before we get going too crazy here. The first thing is if you look at the pay scale under the firefighter paramedic, were the hourly rates in that scale the hourly rates that you wanted?
Under
Because
which
we found that
one?
there's a discrepancy in the 17% stipend.
Okay. Which chart? Because I've handed out a couple.
On the original.
Okay. I will
the
take
big
a look
one.
at it. I'll have to sit down and look at it,
Okay,
but I will take a look.
okay.
Do you know what step?
It's throughout the
Okay.
whole thing.
You said firefighter with paramedic?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I will look at the percentage there.
Step one appears to be the 17%. The other steps are not.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. So it's not going to be 17 step of the step in front of it. It's going to go across the scale then.
From firefighter down.
So, yeah,
On
that
each
once
one.
it's the first step, it then goes across through the steps. It's no longer applicable to the grade above, but I will take a look at it. And I'll come back.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so
a
it's,
little bit?
it's not directly tied to the firefighter at that point. Once it hits the stipend level, it's building off of each step. It's not looking to the grade below it, but I will take a look at it.
Is
So-
that,
so you're
is
not-
that how you calculated it?
You're not
So it
intending-
walks along a sidewalk, it doesn't climb up a ladder.
Okay, so you're not intending a firefighter with medic at step 4 to be exactly 17% more than a firefighter. at
No,
step
it would
4.
be the percentage from the step in front of it,
So
not the
it'll show
grade.
higher, is what you're saying?
I don't know, I'll have to look at it.
Um,
But yeah, along a sidewalk, not up a ladder.
We'll double check our math on that.
Well, I'll
and
happily
then-
take a look. If
Okay.
you've done the calculations,
Well,
then I'll take a
And
double
that may
look.
be perfectly fine. We were unsure of what
Oh,
the intended.
right.
And these are a lot of the
formula was.
conversations. Once you move to that new grade, it goes along the steps. It no longer looks up except for step 1.
Okay.
Okay.
But I'll take a look at it.
All right. Second thing, we were hoping to get just a little bit more explanation on, we were looking at the city's step plan, the general employee step plan, and comparing it to ours. We were just wondering, maybe having a little more explanation on why their scale looks so different than ours, as far as the percentage increases between steps.
So the city scale, again, we don't have a rank structure. So your guys would be more applicable to what we have for sworn officers in the police department. The city scale is 12 steps wide, which is the same as yours, but the width of that scale is 40%, where the width of your scale, I think, ranges between 25 and 32-ish. It's been a few days, around 30.
Sure.
Now, the city has a retention loss point that we do not see in the fire department, which is why our step 6 is really weird. We did a bunch of research on what our loss point was, and our highest turnover point is at year 6. I don't have that in the fire department. So that's why it's applied differently. All of my scales, as you step into a position, the learning curve is higher. When you're new, you have a lot more things to learn. That's why we front load the scale with the higher percentages at the beginning, tapering off towards the end. So they do match there. The weirdness is that step 6 that you see this big weird number. It's because we wanted a 40% wide scale. That was our loss point. I calculated everything else and the extra percentage went there. But we don't have the rank advancements, which is why our scale is 40% wide as opposed to 28 or 30.
Okay. You guys have any other questions about that one?
Along those same lines, so you have proposed steps for non-supervisor positions or percentage increases between steps. that
Individual
don't match-
contributors and
Yeah, they don't match the supervisor increases. And I'm just curious what the rationale was there, again, given that the city scale seems to be consistent across all grades, from 1 to 19.
So we're finding more and more with the generations currently coming into the workforce, not everyone's interested in being a manager. They're looking for individual contributor roles that have the growth, which is why you see that scale 3 or 4% wider than the managerial ranks. The other thing is, once people start moving into management, they usually are interested in continuing that growth up through management. That's why the percentages are less. Because they're usually promoting faster. They're not staying in the individual contributor role.
So you're looking to encourage promotion from, like, say, encourage captains to
Yes.
then promote to
Yes.
the next step, and then the BCs promote to the next step.
Well, I rarely see
I
BCs
mean-
promote out of BC, but yes,
But-
that is
but
ultimately the
that's
goal,
intention,
is to continue to
encourage
grow
promotion.
those leadership skills. Good leaders are hard, and your guys' department has a lot of good managers. We want to keep that trend going.
Do you see any issues with that, being that the promotion opportunities decrease drastically as you move up to those higher levels, where there's 15 captains, there's only 3 BCs?
Oh, yeah.
and
So when we sat down, we actually, we pulled some information Christy helped us that the department had, and then HR further investigated it. Average time in position. Ideally, your scale would not have 12 steps for anybody, because we've never had a BC sit for 12 years. I would have truncated the scale, so it was more of an angular scale, 12, 10, 8, 6. And then the percentages probably would have been more uniform, but I left everyone at 12 in case you do have someone that stays in that position long-term, so they continue to have growth opportunity and they're not maxed out. It's depressing to be maxed out. And like you said, once you become a captain, there's only 3 spots above you. And those don't turn over as often as captain because you're at 16 people versus 3. So that's why the scales are equal steps. And that's why the percentages are slightly less in the managerial levels, because we don't have people hitting those steps traditionally.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? Okay, as far as the job descriptions go, so we have reached out to our body for some input on those. So we are working on putting together some committees to
Oh, yeah.
go through those job descriptions for us. We just started that process. What we were wondering is if we could get the job descriptions for the day staff, if we're gonna have them, if we're gonna have everybody put into the contract.
I haven't rewritten theirs yet. At this point, I'm out of time. It's a lot of work to do the research on them. Our hope was to get them on the scale this year, and then at the next negotiation, we would add theirs into the contract. Right now, they would exist as, I think it's tied through SOG. They would stay in the SOGs, and then we would work on developing those and modernizing them for the next negotiation. You guys are more than welcome to make a run at them for me.
Okay.
If I do a modernization on them, it's just gonna be surface. They're gonna look prettier, but they're not gonna, their content is not going to improve at this point. Not in the time frames we're working on.
So we would still like to have all of them in the contract.
We can easily pull the ones out of SOG in. I'm happy to include those. I can pretty them up, just make them look similar, even though the content will need overhauled at the next negotiation. I can bring those to the
Let's
next
do that.
session.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that. We also have a proposal for you. I guess it would be a counter proposal.
Okay.
I will hand it to you, or have Adam hand it to you.
Adam, we need all of those.
What's that?
These are theirs.
right?
You just need 3.
Too.
Yeah.
3 for us, yes.
Okay.
Adam, do you have one?
Do I have one? I don't
Yeah.
have one, no.
We got, well,
You have to.
yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, you're
You're
fine, you're
okay.
okay, yep. I don't know.
Okay.
So right here, not here. Oh, day staff, right there. There it is.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm pulling it up here. Okay, so our counter proposal to the day staff pay scale would be to move a couple of the positions into different grades. So we have sorry, let me adjust this a little here. Let's see a little better. We have the fire and EMS billing support specialist. They were, I think they were originally placed in a G8 slot or sorry, a G6 slot. And then we have the billing and coding clerk. They were also placed in a G6 and we have them moving into a G8. Part of the reason for this is that we feel like the fire and EMS support specialist is kind of comparable to the finance clerk as far as the other positions in the city go. That position's job duties kind of fall more under more than just answering phones. She's responsible for billing at times and some admin roles that way. Medicaid, or sorry, let me see here.
Cost recovery.
Cost recovery, packets. And then the billing and coding clerk as well has very similar responsibilities as far as Medicaid billing, things of a higher kind of a certification level. Then we move on to the fire inspector, and we feel like that is more comparable to the inspectors throughout the rest of the city. The building inspector, plumbing, electrical inspectors. So we feel like that position should move into a G11 with all the other inspectors. And then the medical billing specialist, she operates in a supervisory role when the office manager is gone. And she has a lot of federal requirements, compliance roles to fill as well. So she's dealing with making sure that we're compliant in that office with all the federal regulations. We feel like moving these people into these or moving these positions into these grades has a very small cost effect to go onto the plan. So that's our counter proposal for that.
Okay.
And then one final thing here, we would like to bring back the city proposal 11. That's one that had to deal with comp time and overtime extra duty. We initially were under the impression that it was unable for us to split comp time and overtime.
Didn't we TA that one?
We did,
Okay,
yep.
Okay.
I'll let you find it.
that's okay. I know which one we're talking about.
Okay. We were originally under the impression that we were unable to split comp time and overtime in the same pay period. After talking to the people in our office that do it, they say that all of our time is hard-coded and it's not that big of a deal to do that.
So we've talked directly with payroll and it is not a function of the system. It has to be one or the other within a pay period. So I'm from the processing end, they're from the submission end, and I'm telling you from the processing end, payroll's saying it's a no.
Okay.
Because I've checked on this one 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
Come back.
Okay.
So are you rescinding your TA?
Not at this time.
Okay,
Outside of this session, who would you recommend we talk to about that in finance?
JJ.
To get the,
JJ
Okay.
or Jessica.
okay.
Okay.
I think maybe we'll follow up with them.
Because the
directly, just to-
processing end is a lot different than what's entered into the system. Yeah, anything can be entered. That doesn't mean the system can handle it.
Okay. All right, that's all we have for this morning.
Okay. Can we caucus for 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
You want exactly 5 minutes?
I do. I want
Or
exactly
do you want
5
to come
minutes.
and, do you want to come and get?
Right, and we're back. And I have a guest. If you don't know, this is JJ. He
Welcome.
works in finance, and part of his job is payroll processing. So he is here to answer your question.
Okay, so JJ, we hard code our time, and then I assume that we submit it to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, the time gets submitted into time clock, and then we upload the hours into Naviline. Yes.
Okay. What we are curious about is combining overtime and comp time in the same pay period.
The system will not automatically combine and do that calculation. The system is going to look for where within your profile you've elected either overtime or comp time, and base a calculation off of that. It would have it cannot distinguish between a portion of this is going to be comp time and a portion of this is going to be overtime. It's going to be one or the other.
Can you explain to me what hard coding means?
Hard coding, you can go into an individual's time and manually enter a day. So say you want 1 hour, 2 hours, however many, and which specific code is going to go towards. This is a lot of manual entry, and there can be room for error there.
Okay.
I guess, so with that, just for example, if somebody had, say, a 10-hour overtime shift, if it was submitted to the system as 5 hours of overtime and 5 hours of overtime for a 10-hour block, could one 5-hour be handled by the system as overtime and one 5-hour be handled as comp time?
My understanding is when it's going to pull the hours in from time clock into Naviline or Finance Enterprise, it's going to look at it as overtime or comp time based on the election in the profile. So even though it says a specific code in time clock, it's going to change it to whichever is elected within this individual's profile.
Okay, so regardless of how it goes in, the two 5-hour blocks.
Yeah.
It's still gonna say this person has chosen this over here, so we're gonna
Yeah.
apply that to both.
Yep. Yep. And we have cases where people have elected comp time, and there's a maximum of the bank that we have to manually go in and change to make sure they don't lose those hours and convert it to overtime. But this is manual entry. It's not a automatic process that happens within the system.
So it can manually be done.
Yes, it can be manually done. It would just be a matter of timing and, like I said, room for error could be there. But the system will not automatically do it.
Okay. Guys have any other questions? For JJ?
I don't.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your guest appearance.
Is that all?
Yeah,
That's
I'd run for
thanks.
it if I were you.
Thanks, JJ.
Okay.
All right, how do you guys want to continue on?
Well, I think that we would like you to maybe check your calculation on that. So if we could have a brief caucus on what we originally talked about, or did you have a chance to?
In 5 minutes? No.
Okay.
That's gonna be more, because I'm gonna look at the whole scale now.
Okay.
That's gonna be more than a 10, 15-minute caucus.
A lot of what we have worked on is in relation to that. Unless you have, do you have anything to bring to us as far as counters or?
I have no counters today. We're considering your last two proposals we had late, and we're doing some research specifically on the Article 28, which was your original 5. So we're not ready on those.
Okay. Let's take a caucus and allow you to work through this scale.
I'm not gonna have the scale today.
Not gonna do that. Okay.
It's just, I don't wanna rush it, and if there's a concern, I'd rather take the time and do it right, and then I'll check the whole scale again.
Okay. Let's just take a quick caucus.
Okay.
15 minutes.
Good morning, we're back again. So, quick caucus there. The city will go ahead and pull our 24 and 20 until we have a chance to fully review those items to make sure there's no errors. I'm not gonna say they're perfect, I'm saying I wanna look through everything, so I wanna make sure it's right.
Okay. So as far as the comp time and overtime proposal goes, it wasn't our intent to make more work for payroll. We understand that it could be done manually, but that would create more work for them, so we're just gonna leave that one
Okay,
alone as TA'd.
thank you.
So I just wanted to reiterate that the calculation issue that we brought to you, we did that in good faith. We just wanted to make sure
Oh, no.
that everything was good with that.
Open dialogue, we wanna make sure we're understanding, cause it is so big. And it's hard because, again, like I said, it's built off of steps, so if I make an error anywhere, I have to correct it. And the problem is I then have to correct it from the manual, the big calculation to the simple calculation, and then I have to calculate it across 4 years. So if I made an error anywhere, it's gonna screw up all of those. So if it's there, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't, I haven't looked, I will make sure we get it corrected, and then if there's a correction, I'll walk you through it. If it's good, I'll show you how it's good. So either way, I'll explain.
Okay, so yeah, as far as we're concerned, we want to make sure that those are correct before we move forward with anything. And if you need a little bit of time to do that.
I'll have
then-
it ready for our next session.
Okay.
Put it on
But
the top of my list.
I just wanted to reiterate, the rest of the scale to us, the math, as far as we're concerned, looks good. It was
there's-
just, it was
there's
just
one of
that,
me,
it was
there's-
just that one
I
little
know at least
spot.
2 of you doing numbers, so this is good. It's
Yeah.
a good
Yeah,
conversation.
there was just that one little spot that we found the issue.
And it was firefighter.
It was firefighter medic,
Yeah.
between 1 and 2.
Okay, I'll definitely check
Yeah.
it. And that's where I have that weird calculation where we took the 15% and staggered it. So if I made an error, that's where it would be.
And I don't know, I mean, in the interest of trying to continue to move forward, as far as we can tell, it is just those 2 cells between step 1 and 2 on the firefighter medic. And so if you're able to look at that in a time frame that's shorter than a week,
It'll
we
have
might
to
able
be at
move
our
forward.
next session.
Otherwise, we might be stuck.
Well, we do have about 15 other things on the table that are not directly tied to pay scale. So we could talk about those. And I do have some follow-up questions to one of your proposals, just as we're doing research, if now is a good time for
Sure.
that. So revisiting your Union 5, which was the Article 28. So there were changes to Section G and Section H, which is the medical certification, and then the physical agility test. Can you explain what the change in Section G really means to me?
Let me pull that up here.
Because when I read it, and I'm not an expert, it looks like that it removes the medical certification for the outside doctor to say whether or not they should be on the line.
Except for in return to work situations.
Yeah, return to work only.
Yeah, that's how I read it as well.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it here.
No, trust me.
No, it's right. I think it's right here. Okay, so in section G, tell me what your interpretation was again.
So how I read it, not being in the middle of it, it sounds like the doctor doesn't have to give you a clearance anymore unless it's a return to duty,
It says,
right?
it says, fire department physician will provide medical certification.
So the doctor will still have a say.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the only thing that it's affecting is you want to remove the physical agility test for once you're established as an employee. It would
Correct.
still be a hiring component.
Yes, for the
And it would
incumbent.
still be a component for ability to deploy, correct?
Correct.
We wanted to make it,
Yeah, for those that want to.
didn't we just wanted to make it so that if you fail, you're not put on light duty, correct? That was our intent
Right.
with this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, so that's,
And incentive,
As written,
There's
we're trying to
multiple
incentivize it.
incentivize
As
it rather
opposed to
than
remove
rather than
guys from
remove
the
somebody
line.
from the line.
But nobody has to take it.
unless they want to.
Unless they
deploy.
want to deploy,
Right,
or
yeah, in that
for the
case, yes.
incentive.
Yes.
Yes.
And the incentive.
Yes.
But if
Try
they
to
don't want to
remove-
employ and they deploy and they don't have an interest in the incentive, they don't have to attempt it at all.
Correct. We were trying to remove the burden of removing a guy from the line and placing them on light duty. So we'd rather incentivize the physical agility test rather than,
so I
Put a
wasn't
burden on the
here,
city.
and I know we're kind of a leader in the state in this area. I know this is also tied to one of our proposals, which is the 20,000 that is defined in the CBA. How does that impact that 20,000 where you no longer have a physical standard?
What, 20,000 is that?
The peer fitness
The peer fitness
Wellness.
program?
program.
Okay.
I'll talk to this. So, originally, they were never tied together. The wellness fitness industry started well before Fit for Duty.
Okay.
So that 20,000 was long before that came. The Fit for Duty standard came when we, as a local, wanted the department and the city to start paying for the physicals themselves. Prior to that, we used our insurance benefit, and we weren't getting a very good physical. And so we wanted the city to pay for physicals, and so that's when the Fit for Duty came in. The city would pay physicals, we would do the fitness. Over the years, we've seen from staff as well, it's been quite a burden doing the physical, putting people on light duty, taking them off the line, rehabbing them. And so the two were never tied together.
So I do have a question, because you keep saying fit for duty, but physical agility test is a separate section. Are you using those terms interchangeably?
I am, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. So fit for duty, you're calling,
It was a combination of both.
so it was
right?
the physical and the
And
test.
the test, yes.
So those went into place at the same time when we started paying for physicals?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah. But the wellness fitness money was long before that.
And let me ask a clarifying question then. So the second paragraph that you didn't strike under section G, which would now be section G, when it says the fire department physician will provide medical certification, you're referring to what used to be part of the two-prong test or two components for fit for duty. That certification would still be there.
Yes.
Okay. So that would need a little more explanation, but I wanted to understand that and return to work. So you're saying there's two parts to the physician's authorization.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. That gives me a little bit narrower scope of research.
Can we take a quick break in the hallway, just a 2-minute break?
Should I time you?
Sure.
Back.
Okay, so just to touch on our number 5 proposal.
Okay.
We see this as a burden to the city, putting guys on light duty if they don't pass. So we're trying to alleviate that, that burden. If you don't feel like that's a burden, then just let us know, but I just wanted to reiterate that.
And we appreciate that. From our viewpoint, I don't think this has ever been viewed as a burden because the health of employees, especially in such a physical job, is always one of the highest, if not the highest priority. People always goes before property or anything else. So we're willing to look at it if this is something that is a concern for you guys, but from the city's point, this has never been a problem.
Okay.
People always come first.
So this is pretty much what we have on the table so far. We have some counter proposals that are based kind of contingent on the math that is
The
that
two
is
I just
meeting.
pulled,
Yeah.
not very helpful, is it?
So at this time, we don't have anything else, and we're good with calling it a meeting.
Okay. We're done today at 9:30 then. We are scheduled for, I believe, the second week of June. So we'll get those noticed and make sure that those dates are clear out to you guys.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thanks, guys.